Okay, so I'm gonna show you the top 10 comments that I use on my daily workflow in Docker. This comment is very simple and they are just enough for you to get started with Docker and work comfortably on your everyday's work. So let's get started. The first comment that I'm going to show you is the Docker PS. What the Docker PS does is it lists all the running containers that are available for you right now. So actually right now it's empty, you just can see the headings, so there are no containers running. So let's go and create one container. To create a container you might do docker run, and yeah, there is a lot of flags that you can give here. And for example, if I run docker run and give a help, it lists me all the flags available for me. So there are a bunch of flags, and usually this is the part where my friends at work or anywhere, they might say, oh, Docker there's too many comments to remember, or too many things, and it's just too overwhelming. So actually it's not. Most of the time I don't see myself using these options. It's good that it's here. If I ever feel the need to change something, I know it's possible. However, it's not necessary in the most of the cases, and it's pretty much really not necessary. So so again, let's say docker run. The commands that we need here, I will try to go directly to the point instead of showing you of oh, you need this, you need that, and if you don't add that, so what will happen? Because maybe this will take a little time to explain. But let's say the three flags that you might be always using on this command are the name, because every container contains a name, and it's easy for you to identify it later. And okay, so let's say I will run a container, an image that I already have called Ubuntu. So before the run, let me list for you the images that I have. So if you type docker images, it shows you all the images that you have. So in this case, I have Ubuntu, MySQL, Redis, and I have a bunch of others. Some images you see has the same name. The thing is that they have different tags. So for example, PHP FPM and PHP 7.0 Apache. So they are different. By default, if you don't specify a tag, Docker will use the latest tag. So for example, if I just docker run Ubuntu, it will just take this one. If I say docker run PHP, it will fail because there is no tag called latest on the PHP. So I need to specify in this case for the PHP. So again, docker run, I give a name, so my Ubuntu, and I could give it like this. Ubuntu is the name of the image I want to run, right? The last comment, the last argument you might give to run will be the name of the image you want to run, and after it you can give some parameters to the images. For example, if I have a PHP inside of this image, I could run like a PHP and I don't know, some scripts, and or I don't know, PHP version, for example, it will output me the PHP version. Okay, so another command that is very common for Docker here is people might use IT. I actually is for interactive, and T is for, it's like to attach the terminal from the container to my terminal, so it will be a interactive thing, so I can type and it will just makes it feels like SSH. So it's not really a SSH, but it will just feels like. So because it's two shorter tags, just don't need arguments after it, I can just append it, so it can be like a docker run it. The order doesn't really matter, it just needs to be before the image itself, because the order is like this: run docker run, this is the command, and here is options that will be the tags, and then the image, and after it you can set more arguments, but this argument will be run inside of this container. So anything before Ubuntu is the options that you can set. So you want to set the IT, you want to set the name, you might want to set the port, that is for example, you want to map 1 2 3 4 on your host machine. map it to the port 80 on the container. So for example, if you have PHP and you are, I don't know, sending something on open a server on the port 80 on your container, it will forward to 1234 on your host machine. So it will be like localhost 1234, for example, or your Docker IP and 1234. Okay. And also another option that might be, I promise you, is the last one, is the V. V stands for volume. You wanna make it. You wanna make a copy of your. It's not really a copy. You just emulate your local volume or your local directory that you run in this command here. In this case, I'm running in this folder here called Laravel. So it will make a copy of my local or anywhere else I wanna into in my virtual container, in my container, right? So I need to specify, for example, the full path of my host machine location, what I wanted to create a volume. So I could do something like this: my username and something, and let's say it must to be absolute path. It can't be a short relative path like this one. If I just say dot means this, right? It can't be like this. It must be absolute path. But it would. The syntax here is like this: your host machine path and your Docker instant container path. So for example, let's say it's home test directory. It can be anything. So it's pretty much will make a copy of whatever is in here in your local to this directory. So for example, if I set of course you can't set a relative path, right? Like this. You need to set a full path. How would be the full path of this? You can manually set this, or you can use the variable pwd. What pwd does, let me show you in another tab. Pwd, it's just output your absolute current path. It's just output your current path, right? So it's full here. So you can use this variable to determine what is the path you are. So you can specify the pwd, and then you can say you can append to it a slash and a dot. So it will mean this directory. A note here is, because this is not variable, if you just set like this, it will not work, because it will consider this as a string, right? So it will, pwd slash dot, okay, doesn't exist this directory, so it will fail. What you can give is a $sign, so he knows it's a variable, it's a global variable, and or a function or whatever it is, and we will output first the output and then append a slash. Something you could be doing here is to append brackets around this. So I don't know, it just feels like feels better for me to use this syntax instead of just the $sign. Anyway, both ways would work. So okay, so let's run this, and then you see what will happen. Okay, I run. By default, it will run the bash bin bash command inside of this container in Ubuntu. You can know this by going to the Docker Hub repository, and there will be specifying what are the specs for this, and then you know, by default the command that they are running is the bin bash. Okay, so now I am inside the image, the container, so I can ls, I don't know, it's just a Linux machine. So if you, for example, apt get update, for example, everything is available for you. So cd, for example, home test directory, right, is the one that we create. So cd, I have here test directory, cd test directory. I will have just a copy of my local. So anything I add to my local, for example, this is another tab here, touch hello world, for example. I just created this file here inside of this directory. So if I ls here, you see there is no file with that name here. If I ls, I have the file now. So it's just will keep it synced. Okay, so let me open new tab here and write docker ps, and you see there is one container running, And there are some useful informations here. In this case, for example, I know the command that's being run inside. And I also know that the port is forwarding the port 80 to my host 1234. So this is important to know. Sometimes you just want to know what are the ports. You can just come docker ps and check it directly here. Okay. Yeah. So how do I exit now this container here? There are several ways to do that. I will show them the easiest one, but I will show all the options. Let me demonstrate to you. For example, if I just close it and I come here, I just close that, right? If I docker ps, the container is still running. Something that's need to keep in mind is that Docker will keep alive while there are stuff running inside of the container. So for example, there is one process running there, so it will still keep alive. As long as that process dies or exits or crash or whatever, the Docker instance also will close. So there are a lot of questions all over the internet saying, oh, I just started my image and it's just close. It starts and close. This is because there's nothing running inside of the image. You need at least one process running. This differentiates from other virtual machines like Vagrant, for example, that you can SSH, and if you exit the SSH, it's still running, forever running. So it's a little different from that. The concept in Docker is a little different. It's like containers that will gonna be a layer on a master machine. Like there is one master machine with many layers, and this layer doesn't have anything, is empty. So it's completely isolated. So you start one process on that layer. If that process crashes or exits, that layer also exits. So it will not interfere into another layers or performance or whatever it is. This is I think is a good point, but it might confuse people at the beginning. That why my container just exits. So you know now it's because there is no process running inside, so it will automatically exit by default. So okay, so now I exit, I close that terminal, right? How do I go back to that command that is running? Because there is one process running there, right? I want to go back, for example. I just close it for a while, and I don't know, I just want to check again what is there. So I can docker attach, and then I just give the name of my container. So is this docker attach Ubuntu. So I run it, and yeah, I'm back to that. You see, even the directory that I was in at that time, I'm still there. So it means it's exactly the same process. It didn't start a new one. It's just reattach my terminal to that old process that was already running. Another way to exit without closing directly the terminal tab or the terminal itself, you can press the keys Ctrl P and Ctrl Q. It will exit detach the terminal from the container, but it will not exit the process or anything. It will still be there running for you. So it's Ctrl P and Ctrl Q. So if I docker ps again, you see it's still running. Okay, so let's go back again there instead of in docker attach here. And I use this command here, top less b, so I can know that the comments, the process that is running on my machine, on my Docker image, on my Docker instance. So in this case, you can see here there are two. One is the bash, and another is the top. The top is this top itself, so it's running there. And another is the bash, is the one that I'm using to connect to this, to output LS and everything. So so I can Control C. In this case, now I just exit the top, right? But it still has one. But if I kill this process here, so I also will kill my Docker instance. So for instance, if I exit, because I am inside of this command right now, this bash here I'm running is just this bash. So if you exit this, it means that my container also exits. So how do I see all my containers? I can do docker ps and give a flag A, it will show me all the containers that I have, but in this case it's not running. So I have this container here and it's not running. Okay, so how about if I want to run this container again? I don't need to recreate containers every time. I just create once, and I can reuse this as much as I want. So I can docker start and give it the name of the container. So docker start my Ubuntu, and okay, it will just start the container again and run that process that is that it's saying here, that's bin bash. So docker ps, you see it's running. Okay, how about if I want to run another process inside this container without interfering on this bin bash that's already running? Because in real life, what will be running inside of a container will be, for example, I don't know, a Node.js server, and then will be running there. And you wanna, I don't know, and then you wanna, I don't know, delete some files inside of the container, or install something inside of the container. But if you attach to the Node server, to this Node container, you might end up need to exit the current server, do your changes, and rerun the server again. So this might let people be offline, or your application in production stop working. So this is not a good way, right? So there is another command called docker exec. It will accept some commands that you can pass in the run command, like it is the same to make it interactive and on my terminal. Yeah, and then you also need the name of the container. So in this case, it's my Ubuntu, right? And again, you can give some options here that you can arguments or executables or whatever that is in the global path that you can execute inside of this container. So for example, I want to run another bin bash, so I can do bin bash again. So pretty much this will run another bin bash. So it means that I have, if I do top again, you see I have 2 bin bashes running. If I exit one, that is this last I just run now, it will not exit the first one that was running before. So this is useful because you see I don't need to stop one process to start another. So I can have many processes running at the same time. And the most important, it will not close my Docker, because I can now exit this bash, but that other bash will still keep running. So I can do whatever the changes I want to do, or whatever I want to install, or anything, and I can just exit it, and Docker ps is still running this time, because I wasn't running is like another tab. Okay, so to stop a container, we can do docker stop and then give the container name, right? Now let's say I want to remove the container. I don't know, I don't want to use this anymore. This was just for testing, and it's still here. What I can do? I can do docker rm for remove and give the name of the container. If I have many containers, I can like inline then, like my Ubuntu, container 2, container 3, 4, 5, any, I can inline then, and this will delete, like it's like an array, will delete all. So if I docker remove, it will delete that container. So docker psa doesn't have any container right now. And I can do the same for images, docker images, right? For example, I don't want this Ubuntu here. I can docker rm and give Ubuntu. Or easily I can, because you know there is tags. For example, if I just say PHP, it might not work because he will try to find PHP latest by default, but there is no PHP latest. So I need to say PHP and give this as a tag, and it will delete it. Would be something like this, PHP, and then give the tag name. For example, FPM Alpine, for example. Or optionally, I can give the image ID. I can just copy and paste here, this one here, and in a row, add a lot, as many as I want, I put and click and hit enter, and everything will be deleted. So, one thing that I forgot to say is that it's not docker rm. If I want to remove my images, it's docker rmi. RMI means remove images, right? So the difference is RM and RMI. It's very simple and easy to remember, right? Okay, and one last command that is useful for you, maybe not 100% of the time, but when you are really in production, you got the how to work with Docker, you might need this. Don't think like this, like a Vagrant machine that you have one machine with everything inside. Like you have PHP, you have MySQL, you have Node, you have Redis, you have I don't know, MongoDB. You have everything inside one machine, and your application is using all the resources at the same time. In Docker is actually a little different. This, you might have one machine, one container just containing the PHP, another container just containing the Redis, another container containing just the Nginx, for example, and these containers talk with each other. But how they talk with each other? They, for example, if you want a Redis, how to connect with Redis? If you are using PHP, you need to give it like the Redis host, right? But what is the host of the Redis? You need to know the IP, or you need to know how to connect the IP and the port, for example. And how do you know that? How do you know this kind of information? So let's start another Docker here. Very simple. Just let's run that again. My Ubuntu. So I have this command here. It's a test I was doing previously, and yeah, okay. So this will create a Docker called test image, and my test folder in Ubuntu, and run this command bin bash. Okay, so just let's create it and exit it. So Docker ps, there is this running, right? But I want to know what is the internal IP of this image here, because maybe I need to connect to it, but how do I connect to it? So I need to run docker inspect and then give the image name. It will output me a lot of informations about this container. So it will be what is the path, what is the ID, when was created, for what, who. There is a lot of options here. Most of the time you might not be using this. It might be useful if you are very specific of what you want to find here. But most of the time what you want is in this last section here, the network. You want to know your IP address. So this is the IP address that you might be looking for when you want to connect one container to another container. So you can do something like this to easier your life. You can grep, maybe save this command here, and you can docker inspect and give the name, and grep and pipe it through the grep and give the name. So it will just output you the whatever that has IP's address. So you want this one here. So pretty much all these 10 commands I have shown you. It's pretty much all you need to know about Docker. Of course, there are many other options, but in real life, when you are really using Docker and for local development, or maybe just to push this to a server, you don't find yourself using more than that. Might have some more specific cases that you might need something, but now at least you know the road, right? You know how to find yourself now, because you know. As you saw, anything here you can use the help flag, for example. Anything you can use help, and all the options and tags and everything will tell you the options available or what you need. For example, Docker inspect. What he inspect? He inspects some options that could be these options, and he inspects the container name, the image, or a task. So you can pretty much find anything you need just by Docker itself. You don't need to go to their documentation or go online or find the tutorials on the internet. Actually, it's simple, you know. It's not very difficult, but you need just to get your head to it. So that's it. Thanks for watching. So if you'd like to submit a question to be answered or suggest any topic you would like to know more about, you can go to patreon.com/codefac or go to the YouTube channel and leave your comment right below the video. And don't forget to subscribe.